An unexpected plea. Aging mother's amazing words revealed a life-changing truth for a millionaire. Liam Caldwell stood by his towering office window, watching the hurried lives of commuters below, their faces tight with purpose. In that moment, his phone rang, its shrill tone cutting through the momentary silence. It was his mother, Helen. Typically, he'd sweep such distractions aside, but the urgency in her voice stilled his racing thoughts. "Liam," she said, her voice frail, "I really need you to come home." He hesitated, his mind latching onto the projects waiting on his desk, clients' portfolios teetering on the brink, profit margins beckoning. A gnawing guilt surged, but his internal drive screamed excuses. He was building a legacy, wasn't he? As he brushed off the invitation, a creeping unease began to settle like a heavy fog in his gut. Memories flooded back, the warm, cozy feeling of home-cooked meals, laughter resonating through the halls, and most painfully, the sacrifices his mother made after his father's sudden death. His career felt fittingly colossal, his presence demanded in boardrooms. Yet a faint voice inside him whispered that he was losing touch, drowning in the very wealth he chased. Each deal that lined his pockets seemed to push him further from those genuine connections he once held dear. He felt like a ghost in his own life. Just as the unease became a physical thing, rattling his chest, his colleagues bustled in. "Liam, we need your thoughts on the Henderson account," one of them interrupted, their unease eclipsed by ambition. The pressure mounted, and he found himself stretching tighter like a rubber band, keeping up the facade of his success. Yet, juxtaposed against it all was his mother, an anchor left adrift as he sailed toward distant horizons. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Hours revolved into a blur of numbers and dollar signs until disaster crashed into his meticulously curated life, a botched investment. For the first time in years, anxiety coiled tightly in his chest, and defeat filled his lungs. Meeting after meeting distilled into a single reality. He had failed. Each word from his colleagues felt like daggers, reminders of his frail success. He dismissed his mother's pleas, but now she loomed in his mind, a reminder of everything lost. Forcing himself onto autopilot, he grabbed his coat, the journey back to his childhood home evoking dread and nostalgia. As he stepped into the living room that brimmed with family history, old albums and his dusty baseball glove memories clawed at him in waves. Helen appeared from the kitchen, her smile hesitant, her love unmistakable yet heavy. Tension crackled in the space between, filled with all that had gone unsaid. "Liam," she started, her voice shaky but certain, "life is not just about what we accumulate, it's about who we share it with." A mantra embedded in his mind, at odds with his relentless thirst for success. Each revelation felt like a step deeper into a psychological maelstrom, where financial triumphs clashed with soul-wrenching truths, forcing him to confront his overly transactional life. As night fell, Liam faced unexpected turmoil. His company's dark dealings came to light, pulling him into an abyss of corporate ethics and loss. Should he follow the dollar or his conscience? The shadows in the living room stretched like a reminder of choices made. Just then, an alarmed call from Helen sent him spiraling deeper, her health deteriorating, and his resolve being tested in the harsh spotlight of real stakes: responsibility or ambition, love or wealth. Everything he thought he knew about success hung in the balance as he stood paralyzed, gripped by the weight of unconditional love and buried ambitions. The cries of a mother who raised him echoed through the silence, the question hanging heavy in the air. What would Liam choose when the stakes had never been higher? The walls of his childhood home felt both familiar and alien. Liam stood motionless, grappling with the swirling emotions that threatened to engulf him. Helen's eyes searched his for understanding, a recognition that he had once known well. Yet now, They reflected concern her cracked facade, revealing the worry of a mother who had long carried the weight of sacrifice. "Liam, I'm worried," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, reminding him of the fragmented conversations they had neglected over the years. "You've built such a career, but at what cost?" The warmth of her presence juxtaposed sharply with the cold reality of his spiraling corporate failures. She probed his soul and he felt exposed, raw. Her words, simple yet piercing, unwrapped layers of discomfort he carefully layered over. "You don't understand, Mom. I've put too much into this," he began, but the desperation sucked the air from his argument. Hadn't he always been one to pursue more? More success, more wealth, more whatever it was that could prove his worth? But standing here, he felt the chains of that ambition binding him. Wealth, once a golden aspiration, seemed to mold into a jail cell of expectations, a trap he created himself. "Maybe you need to reassess what more really means," she challenged, steadfast even as her body weakened. "What would it take to make you feel fulfilled?" The question resonated deep within him, a rhythmic thumping that echoed in the silence of the room. He shrugged, feigning disinterest, but internally he spiraled. For years, the chase had distracted him. His ambition had become a relentless treadmill, spinning faster with each success and drowning out his mother, and countless others who had once filled his world with laughter rather than spreadsheets. The gnawing truth twisted his gut. He had become a stranger to himself as he sat down. The fragile balance of honesty and pretense began to tremble. Could he confront the narrative he had scripted for himself? One of suits and success, glossed over with accolades while hollowing out the very essence of who he was. "I thought this was what I wanted. Isn't that why I've worked so hard?" He searched for answers but found only a haunting silence reflected in her gaze. Helen reached for his hand, fragile fingers wrapped around his, as though they could bridge the chasm that had grown between them. "It's never too late, Liam," she assured, voice steady against the storm brewing inside him. "You can still find your way back." A flicker ignited in his chest, battling against the darkness encroaching on his business world. He could visualize a pivot, a chance to redeem not only his relationship with his mother but to claw back the pieces of himself he had lost. The ideas began swirling in his mind like the frenzied energy of a city engulfed in dusk. What if he reframed his approach? What if he merged the heart of his business with genuine outreach, transforming profit into purpose? But with the flicker came fear. The corporation he had cultivated was on shaky ground, and the only path he knew was paved with self-interest and greed. "Mom, my company, it's complicated. There are people who rely on me." The stakes rushed back like a tempest threatening to uproot his newfound determination. Crises were amplifying. Competitors circled like vultures. Could he risk it all for a calling that felt so distant? The very thought of failure left a bitter taste in his mouth. "Then be the change they need, Liam," she urged, breaking through his indecision. "If you stay rooted in your integrity, you will draw people to you." The possibilities unfurled like a wildflower yearning to open to the sun. Renewal pulsed in the embrace of their shared understanding, and Liam understood with horrific precision that choosing clarity over the murky depths of greed meant he might face adversaries unwilling to shift paradigms, people who would use his past against him. The battle lines were drawn. Each confrontation would test the resolve of his character as much as his desire to reclaim his family. He stood at a precipice, torn between the life of self-interest he had cultivated and the love that called him home. Emboldened but cautious, he leaned closer to Helen, determined to bridge the expanse. Just then, another call from the office disrupted the fragile moment. The world he was desperate to escape beckoned once more. "Liam," she whispered, "this is your moment to choose." Yet the day's chaos loomed, a looming ultimatum waiting to engulf him. His fingers tightened around hers, the heartbeat in the silence reflecting his pulse, a reminder that action was everything. He took a deep breath, weighing love against legacy as the phone continued to ring, a demanding tether to a life uncertain. Which choice would carve the path forward when he had finally grasped a chance for redemption? The phone continued to ring, slicing through the fragile silence like a blade. Each chime pushed Liam closer to the edge of a decision he wasn't ready to make. The immediacy of his corporate obligations collided violently with the soft, maternal reassurance that lay just an arm's length away. He could feel Helen's pulse through their intertwined fingers, a reassuring cadence in stark contrast to the frantic chaos of his corporate life. "Stay with me, Liam," she said, her voice steady yet saturated with urgency. She understood, perhaps better than anyone, the siren call of responsibility that knew no boundaries. But here, in this moment, amidst the warmth of familiarity, she asked for more than just his presence. She urged him to consider a future that had eluded him for too long. With a deep breath, he pulled away from her grip, instinctively reaching for the phone. But he hesitated, caught in the web of conflicting emotions. What if picking up meant choosing to drown in the very waters he was determined to navigate away from? What if he failed to even register the missed opportunity to recalibrate his life, to reclaim the essence of who he truly was? "Mom, I need to manage this," he finally said, voice strained with urgency. The belief that taking the call meant abandoning his chance at redemption gnawed at him, but the pull of his responsibilities had always been a chain he wore. She gave him a disapproving look, the kind that only a mother could conjure, a sharp reminder of the disconnect that had grown so vast between them. "Liam, every second you ignore this moment is another second wasted," she asserted, her voice rising with conviction. The weight of her gaze pinned him in place, compelling him to reassess his choices. He wrestled with the phone, a cursed object that now felt more like a burden than a tool. A vision of his company unraveled in his mind's eye, employees overwhelmed with uncertainty, the looming threats of competitors, the metrics and targets that felt less like goals and more like shackles. Did he want to dive headfirst back into that ocean of chaos? A thought struck him. What if he called a meeting instead? He envisioned a huddled conference room filled with his trusted team, their faces tense as he laid it all out. "We need to pivot," he would announce, despite the gnawing sensation of steaming plates of discontentment being thrust towards him by looming stakeholders. The truth was there, undeniable and raw. This was about them, not just him. What if he could align their aspirations with a greater good? But can they be trusted to follow? The whisper of doubt crept in, planting seeds of hesitation about his leadership ability. What if he faltered? What if they only saw a sinking ship in him? "Liam," Helen's voice sliced through his labyrinth of thoughts, cutting deeper than the sharp ring of the phone. "If you act with integrity, they will trust where you lead." In that moment, something shifted inside him. What if the real risk was in maintaining the status quo? Turning his vision inward, he felt a conviction thrive amidst the chaos. Success was not just about the numbers anymore. It was about the people who stood next to him, who shared in his vision of a life crafted with intention rather than mere profit. With newfound determination, Liam reached for his phone, not to answer the call but to make an announcement. He needed to summon his team and share this revelation. This was his opportunity to redefine everything. Maybe it was possible to innovate while uplifting those who had anchored him through thick and thin. Still, a voice inside him warred with this budding resolution. "What if they don't believe in you, Liam?" Images of betrayal flared briefly in his mind, the executives barely holding on, ready to jump ship at the faintest sign of weakness. Would he be leading them into an impossible fight? But that concession echoed hollow. The fear of rejection paled in comparison to the brightness of renewed purpose. This would not be easy, and he knew it. Allies might turn adversaries, and past decisions would come back to haunt him. Yet what other path remained? "Mom," he said, his voice steadying, "I need to do this." The call from the office faded into the background, its urgency diminished by the growing clarity of his resolve. This was no longer about who he had been. This was about becoming who he was destined to be. With a final deep breath, he dialed into his conference room, prepared to confront the uncertainty of their shared future as he stepped into the arena of possibility. As the phone rang on the other end, a thought broke through the mental fog. Could he rally them to his vision? Would they embrace the chance to transform their corporation from within? Just then, a new message pinged into his notifications, a defection within his company. A rival had already begun to orchestrate a backlash. The time had come to galvanize his remaining allies, but first, He would need to face the truth awaiting him immediately on the other side of that conference call. What potential triumphs or betrayals awaited his leadership response? The room was charged with palpable tension as Liam entered the conference call. A wave of apprehension washed over him, tightening his chest. What would they think of his radical shift in direction? The familiar faces of his team, their expressions carefully masked, were filled with uncertainty. He could almost hear the unspoken questions hanging in the air. Would this be their captain steering towards the rocks or towards safe harbor? "Thank you all for joining," he began, his voice steadier than he felt. He shifted in his chair, aligning his thoughts with his conviction. "I know we're facing significant challenges right now." As he shared his vision, he felt an unfamiliar blend of excitement and fear. They were risks involved in revealing his intent to pivot the company's culture, but the urgency of their circumstances forced him to embrace this vulnerability. "We need to redefine our approach, but this isn't just about the bottom line. It's about our future together. I believe we can innovate while still uplifting one another." He witnessed a flicker of curiosity ignite in their eyes, a subtle acknowledgement that maybe they too were longing for change. This flicker illuminated Liam's resolve. This company was not built on numbers alone but on the dedication of each and every one of you. I want us to harness your strengths, to leverage our collective creativity. The murmurs on the other end reflected skepticism and hesitancy, the unknown looming large. A sharp voice broke through, piercing his carefully constructed optimism. "Liam, are you sure about this? Given the recent defection and market volatility, is this really the time to shift our focus from profit?" His heart pounded. They were right. The odds were daunting. Yet the truth of Helen's words echoed in his mind. Integrity leads to trust. He leaned into the challenge. "Yes, but if we keep focusing solely on profits, we may lose our foundation. Our strength lies in our people. Let us engage them in a way that values their contributions beyond the spreadsheets." Their silence spoke volumes. The tightrope of leadership he walked felt more precarious with each moment, but an ember of clarity glowed within him, urging him onward. "I'm asking for your partnership in this. Let us reframe our goals around collaboration. We can weather this storm together if we hold true to our values." As he finished speaking, the silence stretched painfully. Then, one by one, the video feeds brightened with nods of agreement, a small but significant shift. The transformation was invisible but palpable, like the shifting of tectonic plates beneath his feet. They began to share their thoughts, inhibitions giving way to ideas, creative solutions pouring forth that he hadn't anticipated. For the first time, the collective energy in the room hummed with potential, and the deep gnawing doubt began to fade. He felt alive in this moment, a leader reclaiming his power as they tackled challenges as a cohesive unit. But there was still so much at stake. What if, upon embracing their true potential, they unearthed deeper fissures within the organization? Past mistakes could rear their heads, and dissent could surface among those resistant to change. The call ended, but a heavy realization settled upon him. Implementing real change would require him to confront not only the external challenges but also his own barely resolvable dilemmas. As he leaned back in his chair, relief mingled with anxiety. The warmth of his newfound plan glimmered with possibilities, yet obscure threats loomed larger than ever. He glanced at his phone. Another notification blinked on the screen. It was a message from his rival, a challenge to his leadership, a direct confrontation he hadn't anticipated. He had stirred the waters, but now he steeled himself for what came next. This wasn't just about revitalizing his company. It was about defending his vision against those who would seek to tear it down. What desperate paths awaited his leadership in the face of this impending threat? Liam paced the office, the weight of the world pressing down on his shoulders. How had he let himself become a target? The message from his rival played on a loop in his mind, a jarring reminder that ambition comes with its share of enemies. He had attempted to unite his team and cultivate innovation, and now it seemed he had also ignited a spark of envy in the corporate arena. He settled into his chair, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Should he craft a response, composed yet assertive, or would silence be the better approach? Each option carried risks, akin to navigating uncharted waters with hidden currents waiting to pull him under. An unsettling thought crossed his mind. What if he was overestimating his ability to inspire change? The self-doubt clawed at him, challenging his newfound resolve. A notification ping broke his reverie. It was a message from an old mentor, asking to meet. It had been years since they last spoke, yet Liam felt an undeniable pull to reconnect. Perhaps this was the moment to seek guidance, to realign his vision in the face of this brewing storm. He considered the possible revelations his mentor might offer and the personal development that could unfold. Arranging the meeting for later that afternoon, he returned to the message from his rival, reading the taunts closely. "You think collaboration can save you?" it insinuated. "Just an excuse for your incompetence." The jibe lodged itself deep within him, igniting a fury he had thought he set aside. Those unsettling emotions morphed into determination. What had his rival ever accomplished if not through manipulation and cunning? In that realization, Liam's vision crystallized. He must embody the very change he preached, standing resilient against attacks aimed at dismantling his leadership. The meeting with his mentor arrived unexpectedly swiftly. Over coffee, he found himself recounting not just his recent battles but his past doubts and evolution. "You've always been passionate," his mentor noted, scanning Liam's face with perceptive eyes. "But passion without a mission is like setting sail without a compass. Have you truly defined your North Star?" Liam hesitated, uncertainty festering as he considered the question. Was his desire for collaboration rooted in true leadership or simply a reaction against pressure? The urge to innovate arose not just from a craving for success but from a desire to provide a workplace where trust flourished. "Find out not just what motivates you but also what resonates with your team," his mentor advised. "The anchors of your journey lie within the values you share. Are you leading them towards their strength or your own vision?" The words struck him profoundly, urging him to dive deeper into understanding his motives. He realized it was not enough to simply present ideas. He needed to invest time in dialogues that truly considered his team's perspectives. He left the cafe invigorated, intent on reestablishing trust while fortifying his vision. Back at the office, he gathered his team for an open forum, creating a space for sharing thoughts and feelings on the transformations ahead. The vulnerability he had embraced before now felt amplified. This was a test, a daring move intertwined with uncertainty. As the discussions unfolded, it became clear that they all yearned for a more profound connection, not just as colleagues, but as a unit with a common purpose. Ideas surfaced, unearthing potential they weren't even aware they possessed. This wasn't only his fight but their shared mission. But as he witnessed their engagement, a gnawing thought lurked at the back of his mind. Would his rival interpret this new unity as a sign of weakness? With determination fortified and connections deepened, Liam prepared for whatever confrontation lay ahead. However, as the thought of battle against his rival resonated, deeper questions about loyalty, strategy, and the essence of leadership loomed larger in his mind. As he turned back to his desk, a notification lit up his phone again, another message from his rival, teasingly hinting at a revelation that would shake the very foundation of everything he had built. Liam's heart raced. What could they possibly know? What would they unearth that could challenge everything he had worked towards? The weight of the impending revelation clawed at Liam's mind as he stared at the message, the cursor blinking defiantly on his screen. Composing himself, he opened the message, his gut twisting in anticipation. "You think your team is loyal?" it began, a calculated jab masked in venomous curiosity. "Perhaps they're just waiting for the right moment to turn the tide. Perhaps you should reflect on what they're really thinking." With a heavy sigh, Liam leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his hair. It was a harsh reminder of an uncomfortable truth. Even amidst hope and unity, fragility lay in open trust. He couldn't shake his mentor's words about understanding the motivations that resonate within his team. Did he truly know them, or had he merely projected his aspirations onto them? Determined to confront this creeping doubt, Liam crafted a strategy. He would not only ask for feedback in the next team meeting but would also engage in one-on-one conversations. This form of engagement would create personal connections, distilling what each member felt about their roles, aspirations, and their allegiance to him and the vision he articulated so passionately. The next morning, he set the stage by distributing a survey to his team, anonymously probing their thoughts on their current work environment, clarity of team objectives, and areas they felt they needed more support. Each response felt like a step towards fortifying his leadership, stripping away any illusion of overconfidence while establishing a foundation of transparency. To complement the surveys, Liam arranged individual follow-up sessions. Meeting with his colleague Jenna, whose technical expertise had been pivotal in their recent innovation strategy, he noticed immediately that she was guarded, her walls visibly erect. The vulnerability he sought to evoke in others mirrored the discomfort he felt within himself. As he inquired about her views on recent changes and her aspirations, the conversation took unexpected turns. Jenna hesitated but slowly began to unfold her fears, particularly regarding increased workload and inadequate recognition of her contributions. By the end of the meeting, they had brainstormed potential solutions, some simple, others requiring systemic changes. Liam felt a pang of realization. He hadn't just listened. He had also taken action to empower. This wasn't merely about managing his team's output but nurturing their ambitions, creating an environment where they thrive together. His next session bore deeper insights as he met with Harold, a longtime employee who had shown signs of frustration recently. Concerns about the corporate direction emerged, married with a wish to see tangible changes rather than lofty ideals sprinkled in company huddles. For the first time, Liam sensed the underlying worry in Harold's voice, fear of obsolescence and conflict with their emerging culture of innovation. With every conversation, Liam began to unravel unrecognized talents and aspirations hidden behind the daily grind. These were precious gems of potential just waiting to be acknowledged and cultivated. He began to understand that the more he invested in these exchanges, the more he could orient his leadership towards genuine collaboration rather than mere directive power. As he wrapped up the last meeting for the day, Liam felt invigorated, his mind buzzing with ideas to harness their unexamined strengths. Each discussion added another piece to a complex puzzle, one that promised to elevate not only the team but also himself as a leader. The intricate tapestry of fears, hopes, and ambitions was beginning to form a more cohesive narrative, a framework of solidarity built on mutual respect and acknowledgement. But as he updated notes from his meetings, his phone buzzed again. It was a notification, a video message from an unrecognized number, marked as time-sensitive. Curiosity mingled with anxiety. What could this possibly pertain to? The moment felt heavy with anticipatory tension, a hint of a storm brewing just beyond the horizon of his newfound understanding. Liam took a deep breath, steadied his pulse, and pressed play, steeling himself for whatever revelation awaited. The moment the video began playing, Liam's heart thudded in his chest, each second stretching into an eternity. The screen flickered, revealing a familiar face, his mother, seated against a backdrop that echoed memories of his childhood. A smile broke across her face, warm yet tinged with an unspoken gravity. "Liam," she began, her voice steady but layered with concern. "I know you've been busy, but there's something important I need to tell you." He felt the weight of her gaze penetrate through the digital barrier, a call to attention that brought his thoughts back to earth as she spoke. He struggled to focus on her words. The anticipation that mingled with anxiety left him restless. His mother's life experiences unfolded through stories, each anecdote holding pieces of wisdom he had overlooked amidst his ambitions. Yet, as she navigated through her reflections, a certain undercurrent pulsed, a kernel of truth that seemed insistent, as if she were trying to chip away at his defenses. "Life is about connections, Liam," she continued. "I remember when you were younger how you worried about fitting in, about being the best. You thought success was the only thing you could hold on to. But while you were chasing that, you didn't realize what you were leaving behind." He shifted in his chair, feeling a surge of discomfort. Did she see the success he had built as something hollow? Was there an element of regret woven into her observations? The messages from the unknown sender came racing back to him. Had he been so absorbed in his own ascent that he had neglected the very connection she urged him to nurture? Her words wrapped around him like a shroud, urging him to reevaluate his priorities. As she delved deeper, recounting family gatherings where he had chosen to work late rather than spend time with loved ones, He felt the sting of truth reverberate. He had indeed traded relationships for accolades, stepping over moments that could have anchored him, leaving an emptiness he now feared. "You have a talent for leadership," she said softly, "but exclude the love of those around you from the equation, and it won't matter what you achieve. Look to your team and really see them beyond their roles. They are part of what brings you true success." Something within Liam shifted, his heart racing with the urgency to reconcile these conflicting truths. As he absorbed her insights, shadows of doubt from the earlier meetings resurfaced in his mind, merging with her revelations. Had he truly seen his team, their aspirations, and their struggles? Or had he only seen what would further his own goals? The video ended, and as his mother's face faded from the screen, an eerie stillness enveloped him. He realized this wasn't just a reminder from his mother. It was a call to action. He had been traversing a path lined with ambition, but now he stood at a crossroads. For a fleeting moment, he understood that trust flowed both ways, and building genuine connections required more than just fostering an environment. It involved acknowledging his own vulnerabilities, admitting mistakes, and putting relationships at the forefront of his leadership. With newfound determination, Liam scrolled back to his notes from the day's meetings, his mind racing with ways to shift the dynamics within his team. He would gather them to lay everything out in the open, not just as a leader but as a human being willing to be vulnerable in front of his team. Just as he resolved to act, a notification flared up on his screen, another message from the unrecognized number, linking to a blog post about corporate loyalty and trust. The timing felt uncanny, intensifying his sense of foreboding. Who was behind it, and what more did they want from him? As he leaned forward, curiosity igniting within him, a relentless question plastered itself on his mind. Would the truth help solidify his leadership, or would it unravel everything he had worked for? The air turned electric with possibility as Liam set his focus back to the screen, now aware that this path could lead to an undeniable rupture or a revelation of transformative trust. Liam pushed his chair back and leaned against the desk, the orange glow of his laptop illuminating the corners of the cluttered office. He could feel the adrenaline coursing through his veins, spurred by his mother's message, the phantom weight of unspoken truths resting heavily on his shoulders. The world outside his window blended into shadows as dusk settled, but inside, clarity began to crystallize, pushing him into action. He needed to confront his team not just as a leader, but as a man unafraid to peel back the layers of his ambition. This was a chance to shift the entire paradigm in which he operated, a territory that might feel foreign but was crucial for real change. Selecting a time, he sent out a quick invite for an impromptu team meeting that would take place the following morning. As he clicked send, he felt an unexpected wave of vulnerability crashing over him, and it left him breathless. How would they react? Would they embrace his honesty or show disdain for his sudden openness? The fear of rejection coiled within him. Still, he knew this was essential. The choice between hiding behind his credentials and being seen as a genuine human being weighed heavily on his mind. That night, his sleep was fragmented, riddled with nightmares that twisted familiar faces into judges, their eyes piercing with unanswered questions of loyalty and ambition. He awoke suddenly, drenched in sweat, the image of his team's confusion foremost in his mind. Instead of retreating into the comfort of silence, he sought their trust. He felt compelled to break the cycle of detachment, a cycle he'd started. Morning arrived wrapped in tension, the air thick with unspoken worry as soon as his team gathered. He looked over their faces, each one bearing cautious anticipation, a mixture of trust and skepticism. Leaning against the cool wooden table, he ran a hand through his hair and took a deep breath, preparing to shed the skin of aloofness he had worn too long. "I called this meeting because I have something important to discuss," Liam said, his voice steady but his heart racing. "It's about the way I've been leading and the way I've interacted with all of you. I focused too much on results, and I realize now that I've failed to really see you, all of you." He paused, gauging their reactions. Anna, the marketing manager, raised an eyebrow, skeptical yet intrigued. Jake, the finance chief, leaned back, arms crossed, as if bracing for an impact. Liam swallowed hard, pushing past the strain of vulnerability. I've sacrificed personal connections for deadlines and profits, thinking that was the way to achieve success. But the truth is, I feel like I lost my way," he admitted, his voice softening. "I want to change that. I want to create a space where we connect, not just as colleagues but as individuals." A murmur rippled through the room, and he felt the tension start to dissolve, replaced by curiosity. "I need your help," he continued, looking around the table. "I want us to share our challenges and triumphs more openly. I want to know how I can support you." He observed as Anna began to relax slightly, nodding in agreement. Jake uncrossed his arms, a glimmer of surprise washing over his face. Did they sense the sincerity in his voice? The potential for change anchored in this moment felt exhilarating yet daunting. Just as he found his footing, another notification pinged from his phone, the familiar number blinking ominously. A sense of dread pooled in his stomach. Was it another message intended to disrupt this newfound clarity? "Liam?" Anna's voice nudged him back to the room. He realized that while he might have taken this bold step with his team, uncertainty brewed just beyond the surface. "Are you okay?" He nodded, pulling himself together. "Yeah, just a lot to unpack. Let's continue this discussion." As they dove deeper into dialogue, the walls he had built around himself began cracking. But in the corners of his mind, the pulsating question clawed at him. What did the new message reveal, and would it undermine the connection he was so desperately trying to forge? With fresh determination, Liam recognized this was just the beginning of a journey into the heart of genuine leadership. But how deep would it take him, and what shadows lingered on the path ahead? The moment was charged, teetering on the edge of transformation, knowing that beneath every revelation lay the potential for confrontation. Liam felt the weight of his decisions shift as the meeting progressed. Gradually, he noticed something he hadn't anticipated: the cathartic release in his team's responses. With each anecdote shared, barriers diminished, and genuine camaraderie flickered to life across the table. They spoke of late nights and pressure, exposing the shared battles they faced in silence. The realization wrapped around him like a comforting blanket. Connection blossomed in vulnerability. Perhaps this was the metamorphosis he ached for, an invigorating change toward a leadership style that resonated with their experiences. He hadn't just initiated a meeting. He had begun to cultivate a new ethos, one that included understanding and emotional sincerity. In the midst of exchanging stories, his phone chimed again. This time it wasn't just a notification. It felt personal, invasive. He fought the impulse to check it, unwilling to sever the moment. But that gnawing turmoil unfurled within him, boiling into a palpable tension. He shook his head slightly, committing to the present, and focused on Jake, who was now sharing his struggle with managing an increasingly demanding workload amid dwindling team resources. As they continued conversing, Liam discovered surprising insights. Jake, typically reticent, revealed strategies he had designed to cope not by working harder, but by working smarter, advocating for his team's needs in a corporate structure that often overlooked them. It clicked in Liam's mind that this was a pivotal moment. He could infuse these concepts into his own approach, fostering accountability and resilience. Anna chimed in, offering her perspective on the marketing hurdles they faced and how the marketing landscape demanded rapid adaptation. Her passion illuminated her words, sparking Liam's interest. Perhaps he could apply her approach, not just for department initiatives, but as a holistic way to nurture creativity across the board. Suddenly, the claustrophobic atmosphere of the meeting room became an incubator of innovation. Ideas poured forth, and Liam caught himself leaning forward, eagerly engaged. It was exhilarating, yet shadowy thoughts loomed in the background, desperately clawing for his attention. The tension encroached, triggered by the forgotten message sitting on his phone. Eventually, the energy began to ebb as the conversation wound down, and with it came the isolation Liam had felt resolved to escape. He couldn't ignore that text anymore. It was time to confront whatever lay behind it. With a deep breath, he tapped his phone and felt dread wash over him as he read. A reminder about his mother's upcoming operation, paired with an unexpected plea for him to come home. The email was filled with familiar phrases, those typically redolent of love, but it tugged at something deeper. Was this a cry for help? A call for him to return to the life and relationships he had neglected? It struck him hard. The ambition that had propelled his professional triumphs was now counterbalanced by the chasm it had created in his personal life. Anna's voice broke through his reverie, snapping him back to focus. "Liam? You seem distracted. Is everything all right?" Caught between professional growth and familial obligations, he faced a defining moment. Would he continue to deepen his commitment to this team and workplace or prioritize the undeniable pull of family ties? The meeting wrapped up with tentative optimism about the future. Yet within him, a storm brewed, one that demanded resolution. He stood, and the team began to filter out. But instead of following through the exit, Liam remained behind, fingers trembling over his phone. The challenge lay ahead, balancing the newfound purpose at work with the heartache and responsibility waiting for him at home. As he wrestled with this dissonance, one question echoed louder than all others. Could he find a way to be both the leader they needed and the son who was there for his family? The junction between personal and professional transformation loomed ahead, fraught with uncertainty, and he would need clarity as he navigated this critical crossroad. Liam addressed the reflection in his office mirror, the light casting sharp lines across his face. The weight of his decisions pressed heavily upon him as he prepared for not just the day's responsibilities, but a pivotal choice about who he would become. He had tasted the first breath of vulnerability with his team, and it propelled him forward. Yet, the urgent call from his mother echoed louder with each passing minute, demanding his attention. "Have I been running from my roots?" he thought, unable to shake the feeling that he owed Helen more than mere acknowledgement of her sacrifices. He made the decision he would go visit her after the meeting. Her essence stood as a mirror to everything he had nearly lost while sprinting towards professional validation. As the meeting commenced, the atmosphere held remnants of yesterday's collective energy, a newfound unity blending the promise of change. Each member of his team shared ongoing challenges and aspirations, weaving threads of personal narratives into a cohesive fabric. Liam felt their trust begin to flourish, cultivated in the fertile ground of authenticity he had decided to tend. "Together we can redefine our success," he asserted, leaning into their collective potential. Success isn't merely financial. It's about fostering an environment where each of you feels valued, where we all contribute towards a greater purpose. As he spoke, he witnessed the initial hesitance melt away, replaced with budding excitement as they began brainstorming innovative solutions to their major hurdles. With each idea exchanged, the formerly stagnant corporate landscape transformed into the bloom of possibility. But amid the constructive dialogue, a thought continued tormenting Liam: what was waiting for him at home? At what cost? The meeting wrapped with palpable enthusiasm. Jake voiced appreciation for Liam's commitment to leading with compassion, praising this new direction towards collaboration. Anna nodded in agreement, her relief evident. Just as energy rose to its peak, the sharpness of another notification jolted Liam back to the forefront of his responsibilities. Recognizing the urgency of the situation, he extended a request for their indulgence. "Bear with me while I take a personal call. I'll be right back." As he stepped outside of the conference room, the crisp air ground against his skin as he recalled his mother's voice from the video message. He dialed her number, steadied his thoughts, and awaited her response, steeped in both apprehension and yearning. "Liam, my dear," Helen answered, her voice soothing yet fragile. "Hey, Mom," he replied, pushing aside worries about his work life that started to creep back into focus. "I got your message. Is everything okay?" For the next few minutes, Liam listened intently as she shared her fears about the upcoming operation. Their conversation ebbed and flowed, filled with familiar warmth and lingering shadows. Each tender word unfolded layers of their shared history, the laughter, struggles, and sacrifices that had woven their connection. In that moment, he remembered the elusive values he had placed on success over familial ties. "Liam," she said softly, her voice steady yet undeniably tender, "I've watched you become this incredible man, but I need to remind you that you don't have to bear everything alone. It's okay to lean on those who care about you." A profound realization gripped him, the lessons he had nearly forgotten hung on those words. Far from merely being a successful businessman, He could be a son who embraces his responsibilities. He could merge the two facets of his life, not as a burden, but as an opportunity for growth. In the embrace of this revelation, he felt his heart soar, recognizing he could anchor his professional wakes with the strength of unconditional love. "I'm coming home right after work, Mom." When he re-entered the conference room, a rapturous energy filled the air. An epiphany lit within him. He was no longer divided between two worlds. He could produce results alongside compassion. This balance would be the hallmark of his leadership. "Team, I want to express my endless gratitude for your openness today. This is just the beginning," he declared with renewed commitment radiating from him. "From today forward, I'm not just focusing on the bottom line. I'm here for each one of you, for our individual and collective growth. Together we will thrive." Cheers erupted as they overwhelmed him with excitement, a culmination of shared purpose and ambition interlaced with genuine connection. He realized now the profound strength found in both vulnerability and authenticity. That day, Liam stepped forward knowing he had not merely abetted his fears. He had reclaimed the essence of who he was: an unyielding leader and devoted son. As he left the office, heart brimming with clarity and renewed dedication, instinct drew him toward the nearest flower shop. He had a growing desire to show his mother just how much she meant, integrating his newfound perspective into the life he continued to build at a tea home. He walked into the warmth of familiar surroundings, the vibrant colors of flowers echoing in the love he felt toward his mother. In that moment, the two worlds merged into one, a legacy cultivated through presence and relationships. The final resolution settled upon him confidently. The monument of his life was not built on wealth alone, but on authentic connection. This was the true measure of success. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you've experienced a transformation similar to Liam's and believe in the power of personal stories, you need to subscribe to the channel immediately. This is the moment to show your support and not miss out on the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us spread more tales of overcoming and triumph. And I want you to comment your reactions and theories about Liam's journey, and share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.